right, so I'll do a quick market recap of today because some people asked me to do one. I'll go over the Q&A we had, the outlook we had, and how the last 2-3 days played out, especially today. So let's start on the daily time frame. Pretty much what I explained in the Q&A happened. I said that this gap does still count as valid for me. We didn't really close below it, especially on ES. Traded into it, respected the old N1, closed inside of the old candle. So the new one should be aiming for, or we should be aiming for this high right here on ES. Same thing on NQ. NQ looked a bit weaker than ES. Also ES is close to all-time highs, so that's a pretty good draw to keep in mind. And what I wanted to see from the last 2-3 days was the completion of this sell model into a buy model. Same thing we had right here. So this was my draw for today mainly, and then I had another draw on the lower time frame too. Yeah, I'll get into that in a second. So on the 4 hour, what did we see? We had this gap we held on ES, also overlapping with an old N1. Same thing on NQ. Although we closed below this gap, we had a 4 hour breaker right here. Pretty much tapped it and didn't go any lower. And that is because during London, I don't know if you guys seen it or did pay attention to it. I wasn't on the charts, but it was pretty clear when I charted for New York session. You can see that we had a small little SMT right here during late London, right? So we had this small SMT, same thing on ES right here. You can see it, right? So this is, first of all, this is to keep in mind. Second of all, from the higher time frame structure, you can see we had a pretty big gap on NQ right here. And we barely missed CE of the gap, right? This to me counts pretty much as mitigated because it's less than a point or maybe a point to CE of the gap, which just gives me a certain context for New York session. Asia traded lower, New York traded lower, little trading above 1800, a lot of trading below it, a lot of trading below through the open. So this to me seemed like an open low, and then distribution to the upside, and then a sell-off for the daily candle, right? Now let's get a little bit lower on the time frame. We'll delete this and just keep it in mind. This pretty much was a really decent trade if I was on charts myself. You can see we had a 5-minute rejection block right here that we didn't invalidate. And you can see we had the same thing right here. I think, yep, where we did invalidate it, creating the SMT, right? But this one also gave an entry if you really wanted to trade it. So this right here, this tap would have been your entry for longs on ES, right? Both gave an entry, both were valid to trade, although this was the weaker asset, this was the stronger asset, right? This is pretty much the trade you see from Powell. I think Powell took something like this. He took OTE of this leg, stop somewhere right here, maybe loose stop, and then just saw this rejection block and decided to hold still. That would be my guess for why he took the trade. Nevertheless, let's go to New York session and market open, right? What did I want to see? I wanted to see a quick flush lower, maybe to sweep out these lows, and then look for an entry up to the completion of this lower time frame buy model right here. Same thing on ES. ES also had 3 equal highs right here, and at market open it was right here, so this seemed like a good draw. Also, ES had this higher time frame market maker buy model completion. So a lot was indicating to me that ES was rushing to buy side. And NQ was the weaker asset in this case, but as you can see, it still followed and also swept this buy side level, which I explained to people in the questions channel when asked. And then I also said that this was the next target for me. Pretty much both targets hit. And yeah, after this was hit, I would have gotten off pretty much. This was right at 11. Yeah, my cutoff time is like 11, close to this. So that's pretty much it. Other than that, the only other good thing I saw was this daily rejection block, right? I've seen a lot of people taking this. This also was a valid, structure-wise, it was a valid trade. For me, it wouldn't have been because of my bias and my 935 draw, but I mean, people have different biases, different opinions on the market. Why was this a valid rejection block? First of all, see, it was unmitigated. Second of all, we had an order block right here, and we had a breaker, right? We reswept this high, so this candle becomes a breaker, or these two candles become a breaker. You have confluences for this to work out, and as you can see on the 1 minute, it actually did. I mean, you would have needed to limit this, or maybe there was a 15-second entry trigger, something like that, an inversion, I don't know, I didn't check. But it never revisited this rejection block itself, right? This got left out, and then we saw this huge candle to the lows. For me, like I said, it was a valid trade. You could have taken it with, I don't know, 10 point stop, maybe 15 point stop. And the risk to reward was, yeah, was decent. There was no news coming out, I checked, so I don't know, maybe random. I don't have an answer for why we delivered this hard, but nevertheless the trade worked for everyone that caught it, and I got off pretty much right somewhere around here when I saw this move. I decided not to get involved anymore because first of all we chopped right here, and then we come back into the range, and then my guess was we would slowly retrace this move up, which we did, and reach for 935. There wouldn't have been any other entry for me to take right here. I checked later, so that's pretty much it. For ES, pretty much the same thing. The only thing I didn't like during AM session today was the correlation between the two assets. I mean, as you can see, this is a pretty obvious sign for me not to do something, not to take anything. They both opened and pushed for their draw, but then 10 a.m. opened with jolts and news, and Q decided to chop and go higher. ES decided to go lower, right? This is really, really bad sign for a good session to trade. Yeah, is there anything else to add? I don't think so. That's pretty much it for me. What will we see for the next days? Not sure. We completed my short-term draw. I still think this high is going to get taken. And on ES, like I said in my channel, I do expect us to take all-time high sometime soon. For the people that have BADJ off, doesn't make any difference right here, but if you have this off, we already swept all-time highs. And for the people that have it off on NQ, you can see we already mitigated this gap, or at least we traded into it, blah, blah, blah. and price looks a bit different, right? This should not really concern you. I like to trade adjusted contracts because on top step the chart looks like this, so I want to have the same targets as projection. And for the people that want to trade raw price action the same way Boy does, just turn it off and your charts will look different. Yeah, that's pretty much it. We'll have to see what tomorrow does. I think tomorrow is Thursday. Friday you have NFP, so don't expect too much from tomorrow. We're gonna build liquidity for Friday. Also, we probably leave this small little gap right here. We'll see if we trade into it or what we do with this. Also, ES pretty much retraced its move. Looks pretty bearish to me. We could revisit the lows. I'm not gonna guess what we're gonna do tomorrow. I'll see what market presents before the open, and then we hopefully get a really good move on Friday. But yeah, that's pretty much it from my side, and until the next time.